That night, after dinner, I started feeling overheated. Sweat was running down my back, making me uncomfortable. I decided to take a shower to cool off and feel better. The bathroom was small, but the warm water cascading over my skin felt soothing and refreshing. After finishing my shower, I chose a soft beige V-neck dress with a long zipper in the back, something I usually wore at home for comfort. I went into the bedroom to put it on. As I tried to pull up the zipper, I realized it was stuck halfway. No matter how much I struggled, it wouldn't budge. At first, I felt a bit puzzled and thought about calling my husband for help. But as I stepped into the living room, I noticed the dim light casting a soft glow over the space. To my surprise, only my father-in-law was sitting in the chair. Hearing my footsteps, he looked up, his eyes showing a hint of surprise. "Where are my husband and father?" I asked, my voice carrying a touch of hesitation. "James just left, probably to pick up some things," he replied calmly. "Is something wrong?" His tone was gentle. I hesitated for a moment, biting my lip. There wasn't really another option in this situation. "My dress zipper is stuck," I said awkwardly. "Can you help me with it?" He placed his teacup on the table, stood up, and stepped closer. "Let me take a look," he said, now standing right behind me. The space between us suddenly felt much smaller. His breath lightly brushed the back of my neck, sending a shiver through me. He carefully grasped the zipper, a slight frown forming on his face. "It seems to be caught in the fabric," he said, beginning to tug at it. There was a faint clicking sound, and everything happened so fast. The zipper slipped down abruptly, and my smooth silk dress slid straight to my feet. I stood there, frozen in place, as if time itself had stopped for a moment. A breeze from the open window rushed in, sending a chill across my skin. "Hello, everyone. My name is Emily, and I am 28 years old. I've been married to James for 3 years. On the surface, our married life seems perfect, with a beautiful home, stable careers, and financial security. James is a devoted husband, always loyal and caring. As for me, I take pride in my growing career, where I get to showcase my skills and find fulfillment in my daily work. We share our home with my father-in-law, William, a calm and strong man in his late 60s. He is someone I deeply admire, not just as a father figure, but also as a mediator whenever James and I have disagreements. Most of our arguments revolve around the topic of having children. James dreams of a lively home filled with laughter, while I don't feel ready yet. My focus is on my career, and I want to achieve my personal goals before embracing motherhood. This difference in perspective has led to ongoing discussions, yet it has never diminished the love we share. James is always patient in expressing his hopes, and I do my best to make him understand my side as well. Each time we reach an impasse, my father-in-law steps in with his wise and gentle guidance. He often reminds us that family is about understanding and supporting each other, and that every problem can be solved with time and patience. James and I have learned the importance of listening to each other and making compromises thanks to him. I always thought our lives would continue peacefully like that. But one evening, everything changed unexpectedly. That day started just like any other, filled with the usual routine. I woke up earlier than usual to prepare breakfast for the family. James liked to keep things simple, usually opting for a slice of bread and a cup of black coffee. I decided to treat myself to a glass of warm milk to start the day on a comforting note. Meanwhile, my father-in-law, William, sat at the dining table, reading his newspaper while sipping his tea. The house was filled with a peaceful morning atmosphere, warmed by the delicious scents coming from the kitchen. After breakfast, I quickly got ready for work. Although my job wasn't physically demanding, it required intense focus and attention to detail. I chose a crisp white blouse, elegant trousers, and a pair of light heels that gave me an extra boost of confidence. On my way to the office, I stopped by my favorite coffee shop to pick up a latte, a little treat to energize me for the long day ahead. That particular day, however, the office was busier than usual. One meeting after another left me with barely any time to catch my breath. I did my best to keep up, responding to emails, reviewing reports, and handling tasks as efficiently as possible. Despite the workload, I kept a positive mindset, knowing that my work wasn't just an obligation, but also something I truly loved. As soon as the clock struck 5 p.m., I gathered my things and left the office. Stepping outside, the golden light of the late afternoon sun spread across the streets, bringing a sense of relief after a demanding day. On my way home, I stopped by the grocery store to pick up some fresh ingredients. That evening, I wanted to prepare a special dinner, something more elaborate than usual. It had been a while since the whole family had the chance to sit down and enjoy a peaceful meal together. As soon as I got home, I headed straight to the kitchen. Aiden had just arrived, and he greeted me with a warm smile before helping me set the table. The aroma of freshly made chicken soup, grilled fish, and perfectly seasoned stir-fried vegetables filled the dining room. My father-in-law stepped out of his study, pleased to see dinner was ready. We all sat together, enjoying the food, sharing stories, and laughing throughout the meal. Even though Aiden and I still had lingering disagreements about having children, these family dinners remained my favorite moments. I never expected that. After such a peaceful evening, something completely unexpected would happen. After dinner, I started feeling a bit warm and decided to take a shower to relax. The cool water helped ease the tension that had been weighing on me. Feeling refreshed, I slipped into my favorite cream-colored silk dress, which had a zipper running down the back. Standing in front of the mirror, I reached back to pull it up, only to realize it had gotten stuck halfway. No matter how much I tried, I couldn't get it to budge. Frustrated, I stepped out into the living room. I was about to call Aiden for help, but the room was empty. Looking around, I called out, "Aiden, where are you?" but got no response. Instead, my father-in-law, who had been quietly reading in his chair, lifted his gaze. Aiden stepped out for a bit. "Do you need something?" I hesitated for a moment before speaking. My dress zipper got stuck and I can't pull it up. "Want me to help?" he asked, setting his book down and standing up. I nodded slightly and turned around, lowering my head a little to give him better access to the zipper. He stepped closer, his expression calm as always. His strong hands reached for the fabric, carefully examining the problem. "Looks like it's caught in the fabric," he said as he attempted to pull it up. However, as he applied more force, the zipper gave way with a swift motion, and in an instant, my silk dress slipped down. I stood there, frozen, unsure of how to react. We were both caught off guard, neither of us knowing what to say or do. He quickly turned away, his voice filled with regret. "I'm sorry. That wasn't my intention." I rushed to grab the dress, my hands trembling as I pulled it back over my body. "It's okay, Dad," I said softly, not daring to lift my eyes. "It's just that the dress is a bit loose." He took a few steps back, visibly unsettled, trying to regain his composure. "Fix it yourself. Wait for James to get home and ask for his help," he said abruptly, before turning and leaving the room in haste. The air felt heavy, thick with awkwardness. My heart was racing, a mix of embarrassment and confusion washing over me. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't clear my mind that night. Every time William's troubled expression resurfaced in my thoughts, I felt an unsettling weight settle in my chest. I had no idea what was going through his mind, and that only made me more uneasy. James arrived home late, completely unaware of what had happened. He was cheerful as always, talking and laughing, oblivious to my restlessness. I tried to act normal, but the lingering confusion made it difficult to focus. In the days that followed, I noticed a shift in William's behavior. He no longer spoke to me the way he used to, his usual warmth replaced by a quiet distance. If we happened to cross paths in the house, he would avoid eye contact, and that only heightened my anxiety. I wanted to address the tension, but I didn't know how to start that conversation. Yet there were moments when I caught him looking at me, his eyes searching for something unspoken. Whenever it happened, I quickly averted my gaze, pretending everything was fine even though my heart was in turmoil. Not knowing what he was thinking left me even more uneasy. I told myself that time would smooth things over, that this discomfort would eventually fade, but I was wrong. One morning, I woke up feeling drained, my throat sore, my mind restless. I checked my temperature and realized I had developed a slight fever. James had left early for work while I decided to take the day off to rest. My father-in-law, as usual, stayed home, spending most of his time in the study, reading books and newspapers or keeping himself occupied with his usual routines. I stayed in bed for a long time, feeling completely drained, barely able to do anything other than attempt to sleep. But the room was too hot, making it impossible to rest. Eventually, I decided to step into the living room to get some fresh air. Dressed in simple pajamas, my hair loosely falling over my shoulders, and my face pale from illness, I made my way out. As I entered the living room, I noticed William sitting in his chair, deeply focused on his phone screen. I murmured a quiet greeting, but he didn't respond immediately. Instead, he slowly lifted his head and looked directly at me. His gaze was different, no longer carrying the usual calmness I was accustomed to. "Are you not feeling well?" he asked, his voice slightly louder than usual. "Yeah, I have a slight fever, so I decided to take the day off," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. He simply nodded, saying nothing more, but his eyes remained on me, as if he were searching for something in my expression. That lingering gaze unsettled me, making my discomfort grow. I was about to step outside to ease the tension, but as I turned, his voice suddenly called out, "Emily, wait. I need to talk to you." I hesitated, my chest tightening with an inexplicable feeling. William stood up, his eyes locked onto mine with an intensity I wasn't prepared for. The atmosphere in the room felt heavier. My heart pounded and a cold sweat formed on my palms. "Emily, you are beautiful," he whispered, his voice low, yet echoing through the silence. I froze in place, my legs suddenly weak beneath me. A chill ran through my entire body, his words cutting through the air like a blade. "Dad, what are you saying?" My voice trembled as I struggled to process the situation, but he didn't answer right away. He took a step closer, and with every movement, the space around me seemed to shrink. His unwavering gaze didn't leave mine for even a second. "Let me look at you. Just once more," he said in a calm yet firm tone. I stood there in shock, my eyes widening, searching for any hint that he was joking. But he wasn't. His intense stare left me speechless. "Dad!" I nearly shouted, trying to keep my composure. "How can you say something like that? Don't you feel guilty about James?" He hesitated, his face showing a mix of confusion and conflict, but his gaze never wavered. "Emily, I don't know what's happening to me," he muttered, his voice carrying a quiet desperation. "Since that day, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you." I instinctively took a step back, trying to create distance between us. "What you're saying is completely wrong," I said, my voice firm. "You're destroying the bond in this family. I am your daughter-in-law." "I know," he interrupted, his voice rising before quickly softening. "I understand that, but I can't control what I feel." "Dad!" I shouted, my voice shaking as my eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to hear this. I can't believe you're saying these things." William stood still, his gaze dropping to the floor, as if he were battling something deep inside himself. The air in the room felt thick and suffocating. After a long silence, he let out a sigh, his shoulders slumping as he finally spoke, his voice trembling. "I don't know how this happened. I'm sorry, but I can't keep pretending anymore." I stood frozen, overwhelmed with panic, my body refusing to move. He stepped forward, his movements slow and heavy, his eyes filled with conflict and an unspoken pain. I instinctively backed away, but the small table behind me cut off my escape, leaving me trapped. "I know this is wrong," he admitted in a low but steady voice. "But this feeling terrifies me. I don't want to hurt you, but I can't stop thinking about you." My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst from my chest. "Dad, do you even realize what you're saying? This is not right. This will ruin everything," I cried, my voice breaking with emotion. He stopped just in front of me, his eyes heavy with sadness. "I understand, Emily. I know all of this, but I also know that there's no turning back. Do you feel it too?" His question cut through me like a blade. I shook my head, trying to deny it, but my body refused to align with my thoughts. His eyes weren't forceful, but they carried a deep, helpless longing. In that moment, I wasn't sure what was happening. The entire room seemed to blur, the sounds around me fading into silence. When he stepped forward, the space between us disappeared, and yet, I didn't move away. All the invisible walls that once separated us had vanished in an instant. When it was all over, I sat in the chair, my hands trembling uncontrollably. My heart pounded violently, but this time, it wasn't confusion I felt. It was pure terror. I couldn't process what had just happened. William stood in front of me, his face frozen in disbelief. "Emily," he started, but his voice faltered. "No," I interrupted, my voice shaky. "Don't say anything, just don't." I forced myself to stand up. My legs felt weak, but I pushed forward, moving as quickly as I could toward the door. My fingers grasped the doorknob when I heard his voice again, filled with regret. "Emily, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I didn't look back. I walked out of the room in silence, tears slipping down my face, drowning in guilt and despair. I had no idea how to face myself, James, or William after what had just happened. That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep. My mind was consumed by memories, sensations, and words that wouldn't stop replaying. How did things get to this point? How do we move forward from here? I had no answers. And maybe neither did William. The following days were unbearable. The thought of telling James the truth haunted me, yet every time I considered it, I felt paralyzed. I knew that if he found out, his relationship with his father would never recover. The bond they shared, built over a lifetime, would be destroyed forever. I tried to bury my pain and shame, keeping everything locked inside, but the weight of it only made me feel suffocated. I realized that the only way out was to leave this place. That was the only way to keep things from spiraling out of control and to protect this family from falling apart. I started making plans, but I tried to act as naturally as possible, as if nothing was out of the ordinary. I didn't want James to suspect anything until I found the courage to tell him what I had decided. Every day, I went through my routine, preparing breakfast, tidying up the house, and smiling like everything was fine. But deep down, I had already made up my mind. One evening after dinner, I waited in the living room, searching for the right moment to talk. "James," I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady, "I need to talk to you about something." He looked up at me, his expression immediately shifting to concern. "What is it? Did something happen?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself before answering. "I think we should move away. Start fresh somewhere else. I truly believe it would be good for us." James paused, his brows furrowing in confusion. "Move? Why would you suddenly want that? Everything has been going well here. Is something wrong?" I shook my head, forcing a reassuring smile. "It's nothing like that. I just feel like we need some space. I think the time has come for us to move on." James placed a hand on my shoulder, his voice serious but filled with concern. "Emily, I know something is bothering you. You don't have to hide it from me. Just tell me what's going on." Before I could respond, William came down the stairs. He had heard everything. "Emily is right," he said, his voice calm but firm. "James, I think the two of you should go. You need space to build your own life together. I never intended to keep you both here forever." James turned to him, his eyes wide with surprise. "But Dad, I don't want to leave you. We're happy here. I don't see why we have to go." William gave him a reassuring smile, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to worry about me. I'll be fine. What matters is that you and Emily do what's best for your future." James remained silent for a long moment, his tense expression gradually softening. Finally, he nodded. "If that's what you think is best, Dad, then I'll agree. But I will visit often." I didn't respond, simply lowering my head, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. I understood why William was helping me. This was his way of making amends and ensuring the family didn't fall apart. That night, I stood by my window, staring out into the darkness, feeling empty inside. I knew that leaving was the right decision, but the weight of guilt and sorrow would follow me no matter where I went. This experience taught me an important lesson. Every mistake starts with a small step over the line. Sometimes, all it takes is a moment of weakness or carelessness for things to take an unexpected turn. No one is perfect, but it is essential to recognize our missteps and correct them before it is too late. Cherish the bonds you have, especially those with your family. Family is not just a place of refuge, it is a responsibility to uphold and protect. One wrong decision can undo years of love and trust. That is why it is so important to be mindful of boundaries and not let emotions cloud your judgment. For anyone who might find themselves in a similar situation, my advice is to choose the path that causes the least harm to those involved. Walking away is not always running from something, it can be the best way to protect the people you care about. Learn to let go, not just for yourself, but to preserve the values that truly matter. I left that place carrying both pain and wisdom. Life is a long journey, and I promised myself that I would never make the same mistake again. This is where my story ends. What happened taught me the greatest lesson of my life, the importance of family, responsibility, and knowing when to walk away. Thank you for listening. I hope my story helps others avoid the same mistakes. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. On the left, I've separated an exclusive video for you. On the right, I've left a playlist with videos you like. Click on the screen now and choose.